A little about AspireNXT. AspireNXT is a digital transformation and workplace transformation organization. We've been in this industry for about 12 years now, right? With more than 8 countries and 500 customers worldwide, and 1,000 projects growing across these customers, and continuously attaining customers. And the niche factor we bring is the bridge between both technical and business, because one can't grow without the other. So that's how we like to approach organizations when we position ourselves as a professional services or a digital transformation provider. From an awards and certifications perspective, we are a VMware Master Services Competency Partner. This is one of the highest level of service capabilities that can be awarded to a VMware partner. And we have excelled in the digital workspace portion or tool set that VMware has, and that is the basis of this webinar too. So today we're going to be talking about VMware Carbon Black, right? VMware Carbon Black is an amazing, security and endpoint security tool. And to give you a lot more on this, I'm going to go ahead and move this webinar on to Ming Wei. He is a pre-sales engineer, and he'll be taking you through Carbon Black's capabilities, and giving you deeper insight about how you can leverage Carbon Black in your organization.
Hi, thanks, Anirudh. Just let me share my screen. Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. Just to be sure, everyone can hear me and see me clearly, right? Yeah, okay, cool. So, good morning. I'm actually Ming Wei, the pre-sales engineer. So I believe some of you may be very well versed in terms of the VMware virtualization solutions. But today what we'll be focusing on is actually the Carbon Black solutions, which is the endpoint and EDR security. So before we talk about all the features and stuff, right, maybe let us drill down a bit about what are the obstacles that your organization might be facing these days. So first of all, right, you'll probably be having a lot of different solutions just to cater for different feature sets and functionality. But all these very siloed solutions, right, often case that actually lacks the collaborations and even integrations between one another. So in the events that you probably want to do integrations with them, right, then your different vendors will start to tell, like pointing fingers, telling you, hey, we can't actually do this. This actually belongs to the other vendors, and so on. The second problems that you might be having is about threat-centric. So a lot of vendors out there, right, their security solutions are very threat-centric, meaning that they are only being targeted to defense against what they wanted to let you see. For example, they only wanted to defense against malware. They only show you the particular information about that malware itself. But what do they actually lack, right? It's actually the context about the systems and the infrastructure, meaning that what are the tools that attacker has been using, what are the script that have actually runs, what are the parent processes and child processes, and even what are the tools that has been used by all these attackers for you to further enhance. You can use this information to enhance your security exposure. They do not come with this kind of information. So thirdly, it's actually about bolted on. So traditionally, if you are using those traditional endpoint security solutions, right, those traditional endpoint solutions, right, they are only making use of endpoint protections, which means that then they start to realize that they do not have enough protections to cater for the needs of the current markets. Then they started adding on different consoles, agents, or even scripts. For example, like last time you have EPP, then they realized they do have device control, then they slowly added in, then they realized they do have application control, they slowly added in, and resulting in too many consoles for you to actually need to manage, and also your skill set, whether does your people really know how to use that particular solution. So just now we did mention about silos, right? These are some of the capabilities where you might be probably looking when you are searching for an endpoint security solutions. For example, from an EPP, you needed something to actually for you to actually do some response, which is the EDR. You probably want to do some audit and remediations based on the compliance. you want to do some vulnerability management. So all these functionalities, right, with Carbon Black, right, we are actually combining them into one single platform, one single console, and one single agents only. So by default, we are actually lowering down a lot of your engineers' effort as well as their time spending in all this investigation as well. So when we are talking about endpoint security solutions, right, there are three main pillars that we actually want to get focused on. First of all is the identifying the risk. You want to be able to identify, to know what kind of risk that is running inside your environment. Second thing, after you have identified those risks, right, definitely you want to have the capability in preventing them. Then lastly, we do understand that no vendors out there, right? That's what actually tells you for which security solutions we can 100% block you off from certain like 0-day or ransomware. That's why this response piece actually comes in very important for you to actually analyze what actually happens within your environment. So now drill into those functionality of individual components, for example, like workload visibility. So when we talk about Carbon Black, right? Carbon Black Cloud itself definitely is endpoint security solutions, but we do only focus on the endpoint security itself. If you want to integrate with your vSphere as well, right? You will be able to integrate with your vSphere and provide agentless protections towards your workload inside your vSphere. The second thing is about vulnerability management. So for this case, right, you probably already have some vulnerability defense against it, but how do you further actually enhance your endpoints or servers, right, based on whatever CVE that you can actually search on the market? Do they actually provide you this kind of advice or solutions to actually do this? Then this audit and remediation is about the part whereby you can do some IT hygiene check. So to put it in very technical terms, right, you are actually using some SQL query to query the whole environment to check on the IT hygienes or potentially some compliance check within all the machines that have been installed with the agents. So moving to prevent, right, we talked about next-gen antivirus. So some of them may say, we are actually, because the Carbon Black originally, when they are on-prem solutions, they are just the EDR solutions itself. But with our Carbon Black Cloud, right, we are a next-gen antivirus, and we can actually replace all your traditional or even now those new antivirus that you have inside your environment. Then on top of that, we do have capability like device control, which actually can lock down perhaps some, you want to whitelist certain like USB only can be used within your environment. That is doable as well. Then we also do come with the capability of applications control. So in this application control, right, you can have very granular whitelisting or blacklisting of the current processes that you wanted to control. But if you really need to have very, very granular control just with application control, and probably you are needing it for some air-gap environments, right? Carbon Black themselves do come with a dedicated application control solutions as well. Then, of course, coming to this detect and response piece, then of course, definitely we will be able to detect the rogue devices. Then, of course, we also do come with the detection and response piece for you to further investigate on the threats that actually happens. But please do note that these two little blue circles, right, for SIEM and SOAR, they are actually the functionality whereby our Carbon Black can integrate with them, and it doesn't really come with the Carbon Black itself. So we have a later slides to actually further explain how we actually integrate with SIEM and SOAR solutions. So just now we briefly talked about the functionality of whereby you can actually find within Carbon Black itself. So how do you transform it or to justify it towards your management? So basically, because that we actually have a very good security efficacy, of course, this number is actually being responded by all these respondents. So with all this security efficacy, the efficiency of our functionalities, right, you actually save down a lot of time when you actually try to investigate certain security incidents. Then because of the capability of our Carbon Black as well, right, you have actually much lesser re-imaging of your devices, just in case that there are some assets failure or anything that you probably need to do re-imaging. You can see that we actually lowers this down by actually 75%. So just now we did briefly touch on the functionality, but the message of this current slides, right, which I actually want to bring forward to you guys, is actually the OSs that we are actually able to support. You can see down there we are able to support Mac, Windows, Linux, and not only on the OSs itself, based on regardless of whether you are inside the public cloud or private cloud, we are able to support you as well. Then furthermore, just now we did briefly touch on things like workload. If you have your vSphere, VCF, or even Horizon like the VDI, right, we will be able to support those as well. Then lastly, if you are into things like Kubernetes, you probably have some container deployment. We also do provide the protections with Carbon Black Cloud as well. So just now we did mention that we are actually a next-gen antivirus. So effectively, right, we can actually be very assured to tell you that we are able to replace the AVs that is currently within your environment. So when we talk about the preventions and the antivirus, right, probably you will be thinking about those standard malware and ransomware kind of information. So not only that we are able to prevent those from being attacking your environment. So for anything like 0-day or repeat variants, right, we are also being able to effectively defend against them. So looking at the left side of this diagram, right, you can see that this is a brief dashboard about telling you what is happening within your environment. So this information, right, I believe a lot of solutions out there, they actually have their own dashboard, but they do not come with certain information. Like if you can see these things in the threat reports. So based on these threat reports, right, it actually comes in from our threat research team. So with this threat research teams, right, you can, based on this type of, for example, this Nodera ransomware, you can actually search for events or take actions. So you will, based on this particular threat reports, right, you can send, you can go to scan your whole environment without having to do a lot of things like figuring out what is the IOC, then telling you what policy do I need to enhance before I can do the proper scan to this environment of this type of new attacks that actually comes up. So second thing is about the non-malware attack. Now we're talking about malware, ransomware, but there are also non-malware attacks, which are meaning on the behavioral-based kind of analytics. What does this mean, right? For example, an attack actually comes in, but this attack, right, may not necessarily be a malware itself directly because it can be blocked effectively by a lot of solutions. So normally, how they do about this, that normally they will schedule some tasks, make use of the existing tools that is within your particular machines. For example, in this case, you can see that they're actually making use of PowerShell, which is a Microsoft applications. So they make use of this kind of application, right, to run certain tasks or to run certain command line, maybe like they want to do some network connections towards your server, they want to exfiltrate out certain data, they want to download certain data, they want to schedule certain tasks, or even do some encryption on your machines just to do the ransomware. So by effectively having this kind of capability on non-malware attacks, right, so we are also being able to prevent you against all this from happening. So in this diagram, right, you can see that on the central, there's actually a chart for you to look at. So whenever there's an alert being generated, right, there's also a triage being generated. So when the triage being generated, right, you will have a very graphical format of what actually happens to your network. For example, like this PowerShell actually have links towards all these IP addresses. But what does it do, right? You can actually look at the further information from here. For example, for PowerShell, then this is a trusted whitelist application based on Carbon Black because it is actually signed by Microsoft Windows. But what is the actual thing that actually denies it, right? You can see from the command prompt, it will give you further down information about telling you that, hey, this thing actually is a remote script block, so it actually tries to stop all this from happening. Then you can see the file hashes as well as the parent ID and all. But later we do have a demo to further drill down into all those details. And just now we did mention about malware, 0-day and stuff, right? So despite that, ransomware has been a very commoditized attack, but still it actually makes a lot of IT engineers' life very difficult. So effectively, right, we actually have these few different engines to actually help you defend against ransomware. Then of course, first of all, we have our cloud reputation. So based on the signatures itself, if this is already a known ransomware, of course, will be effectively help you to able to defend against it. Second is about the AMSI prevention. So this AMSI is actually anti-malware service interface. So this anti-malware service interface, right, is something on your Windows laptop, Windows machine, the Windows OS, whereby you can share all the scripts or the macros that has been run within your environment, so that if there's any behavioral kind of the detection, it actually triggers our detection engines, so we'll be able to effectively block them. Then, of course, we have our own policy level prevention rules, meaning that you can customize your own rules. Whether do you want to, whether is it already a non-malware, you want to ban list, you want to whitelist this, or you want to add some application path. That's based on the policy configurations as how you actually requires it. So lastly, we have this canary files as well. So how does this canary file actually works, right? So this canary files, right, is actually something triggers like an alarm. So when you install the agent itself, this canary file will also be installed within your environment. So just in case that wherever ransomware started to encrypt these files, right, this file will act like a big kind of applications. So when they started to encrypt this canary file, it will trigger the alarm so that your Carbon Black Cloud will actually immediate to block all those processes of encrypting. So just now we mentioned about preventions. Now we move into detection and response. So when it comes to detections, right, one very critical thing that you probably be required is the threat intelligence. So for Carbon Black themselves, right, they actually have their own threat analytic units. So with this threat analytic units, right, based on their own threat research teams, right, you can receive very immediate updates on the latest threats and informations. So if you think that you wanted some third-party feeds like a virus total or whatever other kind of third-party threat intelligence as well, we will be able to integrate together with these third-party feeds as well. And looking at the bottom logo and diagrams over here, right? I'm not sure if you guys are really into security, then these words might be very familiar to you guys. This MITRE ATT&CK framework, right, is actually a very famous or prestigious framework that actually tells sharing out all the information whereby there's any new attacks, there's any new tools. They also do assessment on different type of solutions, and being endorsed by them, right, we are actually being classified as the leader inside EDR in terms of like behavioral and also correlations. So after detections, right, you will dig down into your response piece. So just now you already seen a very similar diagram over here. I mentioned that there's a triage that can actually be generated. Then you will get this graphical format, right? This is a further drill down of what you actually see just now. So from here, what you can see, right, you can actually see what are the processes, application that's been used, what are the command lines that has been used, what are the IOCs. So this might be not very layman understood, right? So under the enriched events, right, you will translate them into very understandable layman language so that you can understand what actually happens within your environment. All in all, right, this actually provides you a 360 view to search across your whole environment based with these solutions. So after having your preventions, your detection, your response, then definitely you want to enhance your policies, right? You want to enhance your environment security posture. So, but you might have some challenges in terms of like deploying certain policies because you're not sure that whether it will impact your existing productions. So that's why, right, we also come with this test rule to actually help you test on these policies based on the different type of devices that you wanted to test on, based on the date. Then it will tells you the results of what actually happened if you actually apply these policies rule set before you do the actual deployment. And when you want to do the actual deployment, right, it will actually be a single click workup. So you don't need to like update every agent and all. So just now we did mention about device control, whereby you can actually go and whitelist your USB devices and all. Whether do you want to like just allow this set of USB or peripheral devices to be making use of. So here you can add the approval inside. But the main focus is that apart from being able to support you on the Windows machines, our device control is able to support you on the Mac OS as well. So just now we did mention about the integration with SIEM and SOAR solutions. Just for everyone information, just in case you are not very familiar of what SIEM and SOAR is. So SIEM solutions, you can see from here, here are some sample SIEM solutions, whereby what SIEM does is actually they do the consolidation of the logs based on different type of solutions. Maybe they have the endpoint security with Carbon Black, maybe they have firewalls as well, maybe they have other solutions. So they can all be combined into these SIEM solutions. where after they consolidate into SIEM solutions, right, if they wanted to do some automations or without any human interventions kind of actions, right, they can make use of these source solutions to run some automations. So this image, right, actually depicts how a workflow will actually works. For example, for our case, right, like carbon black endpoints, whenever an alert actually happens, right, we'll export the logs that has been integrated with the SIEM that you see right here. Maybe some of them are just like IBM QRadar. So once the logs has been sent to the IBM QRadar, it might trigger some automations towards the IBM Resilient. So this IBM Resilient, once it receives all the workflow, right, they will have this thing called a playbook. So the playbook will actually triggers automated actions to tell the system what to do by itself. So for example, in this case, right, this Resilient actually triggers some of the enrichment queries towards some third-party threat intelligence together with some carbon black. This enrichment meaning that when an alert actually happens, right, you wanted to get more information. So when you wanted to get more information, right, you can integrate with all these like threat feeds and information to actually pump into that particular incident so that it can shorten the investigation times of your engineer that might be wasting on. So after all this enrichment has been done, right, you can select to integrate with the trigger the opening ticket with ServiceNow, or even to do the remediation and the endpoint itself. So it actually works like a cycle. You trigger the alerts towards SIEM, then the automations done by the SOAR, then whenever the remediation of endpoint actions that you needed to take, it will trigger back to the carbon black cloud. So it will actually do all those work for you without you to do human intervention at all. So we have been talking about all the feature set and functionalities, right? So this is like a recap for what we actually covered just now. So first of all, of course, we do provide very good protections. And this is not only being said by VMware, but also by all these third-party assessment like AV-Test, AV Comparative, MITRE ATT&CK frameworks. We are being classified in the leader in prevention and detection and response for a lot of this kind of like third-party assessment. So secondly, right, most importantly is that we really have very little tools. In fact, we just have that particular one console and also one agent and one platform. So you do not have to waste time into installing and managing different type of consoles and managing the different type of agents. When certain things didn't happen, you need to actually investigate, wow, what is happening, kind of things. Then lastly, this is the justifications for your management or your IT approval. We are generally lowering down your total cost of ownership because of all the numbers that I previously shared, right? All the times you shorten in terms of your investigations, all the time you spend less in re-imaging, right? So you actually can get a 300% of return of investment in just 3 years' time. And this is not actually being mentioned by us. This is actually being endorsed by Forrester that we can actually achieve this kind of ROI in 2 years' time, replacing your legacy endpoint protection. So we talk about the solutions, we talk about the feature set and functionality, we talk about the more commercial things now. So we actually have three solutions bundle, just to like briefly tell you guys, right? So it actually comes with three. So the standard, the advanced, as well as the enterprise. So for the standard, right, you can see that basically if you just read very simple stuff, then you can get the next-gen antivirus and behavioral ADR. So this alone, right, will already be effectively helping you to block malware, fouls, leave off the land attacks, all these kind of different type of attacks. Then all these detections, visualizations of everything that we present to you early on inside the presentation slides, you will already be getting. But of course, if you think that that's not enough, so on the advanced bundle, you get two more features, which is the vulnerability management and audit and remediation. So the vulnerability management is to check on what are the potential vulnerability that you have inside your environment. And audit and remediation is the SQL query to check on your IT hygiene status within your environment. So for those guys who are not very into security, you guys might be puzzled that, hey, what's the difference between these two? Don't worry, later we'll have a demo to further show you guys how does this actually works and the functionality between these two. And lastly, right, you will have the enterprise bundle. So this is very useful for those big enterprises, because if you look at compared to the previous one, the only difference is this behavioral EDR and this enterprise EDR. So the difference between the behavioral and the enterprise EDR is because that your behavioral, right, will only be it allows you to do the threats informations kind of EDR, but this will be getting all the informations, right, to do the enterprise EDR. So which means to say, right, unless you are really doing threat hunting with enterprise EDR, if not, you don't really require this enterprise EDR. So the rest of the components, right, are actually the same together with the advanced bundle. So now, just let me check if there's any question. If not, we move into a short demo to understand further. Sorry, just let me, okay. Just let me refresh my demo site. Please hang on. Okay. Yes. Okay. So, sorry. So this is actually the dashboard of what you can see inside the Carbon Black Cloud. So inside the dashboard itself, right, you can actually see on your endpoint status, prevention of malware, all these type of alerts. So I believe a lot of solutions out there will be able to do these things for you as well. But one of the important things is that you can see that there's actually threat reports over here. So based on the threat reports, right, if you guys still remember, just now we did mention about our own threat analytics units, right? So with all this information we get from the threat analytics unit, you can straight away search for threats within your environment. So you can know that whether is it impacting your particular environment or not. So if you look at this, right, there's actually the command line, everything will be done for you already. So within this environment, you can say that it seems pretty safe that we haven't been invaded by this kind of threat yet. So moving on, right, you'll be probably very interested in terms of the alerts on how does it actually works within your environment, how does it protect you, right? So just to give you guys a share, right? So before this demo actually happens, right? I actually runs two attacks. So one of them is actually this, for example, like phishing mails. Then they actually send you some malicious files within like this trickbot.doc. Then as well as I have also run this PowerShell command to actually trigger some attacks, so that when we do the investigations, we can see some of the informations within. Then effectively, whenever any of these attacks happens, right, you can see from your Carbon Black Cloud within your own agents, it will actually tell you what has been blocked and some of the malicious that actually happens. One of the things that I would like you to focus on is that if you look at this PowerShell command, right, you do not have to understand the PowerShell, but you can see that this actually encoded command, you can see that the rest of the wordings, right, are all gibberish. But when we transform the alerts into an triage, right, we can actually transform into readable format, so that for those who understand PowerShells, right, you can actually know what is actually happens within the environment or this particular machines. So now let me move back to the alerts that I have generated previously. So just now we actually detected, if you guys remember, there was emails, then there's the trickbot events, right? So opening this up, right, you can see what are the reasons that has been detected. You say a known malware downloader has been used. Has it been verified yet? It's still been unverified. So what are the processes that has been involved? Actually detected some malware application and known downloaders. So if you want more information, right, you can press on this, right, to actually learn more. So it will brings you to the Carbon Black website. So this Carbon Black website is based on the TTPs. So TTPs meaning tactics, techniques, and procedures. So these are the tool sets and the things that they use in terms to attack your environment. So maybe you do not understand the particular processes very well, but inside here it will give you all the information that you'll probably be needing, so you can further investigate. So apart from that, right, if you think that this is not enough, this is whereby we actually goes into this so-called alert triage. So this alert triage, right, will bring you to this page. It will give you the graphical format that I've previously shown you guys earlier. So just let me, okay. So when you have this particular triage already, right? So on the top, right, you will be already seeing some of the very useful information. For example, this particular devices, this particular devices, this particular username, the OS, and also the IP address, and also the target value. So we are able to do the target value based on the different type of devices that you have. For example, your normal laptop maybe have a very low target value, but in terms of your server, maybe you want to put them as a high target value, just in case like the similar type of attacks has been generated on this different type of target value devices, right? It can raise your alarm quicker because of the high target value. They have a multiplier of scoring, then they will let you know, hey, this is important because people are invading your servers, not only your laptops, kind of information. On the left, right, you can see that what are the policies, action that's been taken. Is this a trusted whitelist applications? So this is on particular WinWord itself. But what about this particular trick bot? So here you can see that if this file is actually malicious, then they actually have further information whereby you want to drill down into your enriched events. So this enriched events will actually tells you this file was first detected on where the device was actually copied using public IP address, telling you all the information whereby it's actually very literally you can understand it by pure just English. So let's move back to because just now the one was just a normal malware attack. So malware attacks are very simple. They just send you a malware, then effectively you already know that it's running some very malicious things inside. Very easy to detect. For example, this one, right, it's just now whereby just now we actually investigate on those encoded PowerShell commands. So from here, right, you can see that more and more techniques has been used apart from just very simple, just detected malware applications. So this kind of information, right, will be the similar of what you actually see within the just now that attack. But to further investigate it, right, then you will see it very differently because you can see that this PowerShell commands actually, this is the most important part, because if you guys remember just now we actually make use of encoded PowerShell, which you are unable to tell what the PowerShell command actually runs. But when you transform into an alert triage, right, you will be actually reading the whole strings. Then you can see that actually it invokes a mimikatz to try to do some credential stealing kind of attacks. And apart from those, right, you can have all these kind of informations. For example, like although this is actually a trusted whitelist applications of PowerShell, the policies has been denied because of all these techniques and procedures that's been used. Then further go down, you can see all the enriched events to say, oh, the script was loaded, then policies applied was denied, and so on. So this is more on the malware protections part. So just now we did mention about other capabilities, right? Just let me switch on to another account. So because just now the licensing that you have seen, right, they are not having a lot of solutions out there. They only have the capabilities of the malware and investigations. But when you want to have more information and things like that, right, then you can do some. Probably you will be requiring your policies to be detected. So when you want to do certain policies, right, so on, this is whereby you do the policies. So you can do very granular policies. For example, the permissions, the blocking and isolations. So based on no malware applications on ban list based on different type of operations attempts, right? For example, whether it's the applications running, whether does it actually scraps memory, whether does it perform ransomware like behavior, right? You can select different type of actions to cater for different type of operations attempts. So this is very granular for you to actually configure your policies. Then on the bottom, right, you can actually configure the applications, whether do you whitelist or blacklist it, and whatever when it happens, right, what are the processes that you wanted to do, deny the operations or terminate the processes. So apart from that, so just now we did mention about things like vulnerability and audit and remediations, right? So this audit and remediation actually belongs under this live query. For example, under IT hygiene, right, you wanted to check further certain information. For example, like, hey, does your system actually allow blank password to be able to use? So you are unsure, right? So you can just run this query, then it will scan on your whole environment. So inside this query language, right, you can see that this is running. Then it will probably take some time because the device that has responded, there's a lot. But for the previous type of query that you have actually done, right, you can actually just press inside there. It will tell you all the results within the particular query itself. So basically, on this devices actually responded and what are the results that is being given. So apart from that, so just now we did mention about vulnerabilities as well, right? So the vulnerability management, if you do not make use of the advanced step, you're just making use of the standard, then you wouldn't get this kind of vulnerability assessment. So for example, like this particular machines, we are filtering them out based on different levels of criticality based on vulnerabilities. So for example, now we select critical. So when it comes to criticals, right, you select on these machines, so you can see that, just let me hide this graph. So you can see that there are different CVE. So this CVE actually acts like a threat library like that. If you want to know more, right, you just press on this thing. It will bring you to NIST. This is actually a US government agency. So they provide a lot of information about this. There are a lot about these attacks, right? So based on these attacks, you can have all those descriptions. Then what are the scoring of this? Then what are the reference to advisory solution and tools? So making use of that particular vulnerability scanning, right, immediately it can jump you to all these kind of solutions or advisories, whereby you can use it to further enhance your endpoints. So apart from that, then you can do the inventory list based on your endpoints, VMware workloads, and also Kubernetes as well. So which means that just now we mentioned, not only that we are able to protect use on your endpoints, your servers, your VMware workload, Kubernetes, all these kind of things, we are able to help you to defend against it. So there is one more capabilities, right, whereby I won't be able to show because I believe this is a real account. That's why I don't really get that capability. If not, right, there's actually a live query actions over here, whereby you can immediately use this live query, right? Not live query. This live query is audit and remediation. There's a live investigations whereby you can immediately go into that machine, collect down files using command line when you actually do the isolation of that particular machine. It happens when you want to isolate the machine and you want to run certain commands to get very detailed information about that particular machine itself. So basically, that ends my presentation and demos. So just let me stop sharing. Just let me check on the Q&A. What is the integration of Carbon Black in Trust Network? Sorry, I don't understand your Trust Network. What do you mean by Trust Network? Do you mean by air gap environment? I'm not sure if you guys can further clarify the questions, or if not, I will just take this that when you mention trust network, you are actually referring to the trusted side of the environment, which means that you'll probably be working on an air gap environment. So on Carbon Black Cloud, right? Cloud itself, definitely we aren't able to work with the air gap environment, but Carbon Black actually have an on-prem solutions that can actually be catered for purely air gap environment. So they can do the very similar investigations within the environment itself with pure EDR. That is how Carbon Black actually started off as well, in fact. So will there be a separate workspace security bundles for on-prem and SaaS versions? When you mention workspace security, or you mean the Carbon Black one, right? Is it? So on-prem solution and SaaS solutions, right? Just let me like rephrase all the different type of products within Carbon Black. So within Carbon Black, right? Originally, there's actually an on-prem EDR. Then there's also a cloud EDR. Then there's also application control. So for the on-prem EDR, right, these solutions, right, it's only catered for those mainly for air gap environment, because the costing honestly will be quite high, and also it only provides you with the EDR capability. So if you want to have those antivirus, right, the on-prem one actually doesn't have that. So normally for non-air-gapped environment, I would always prefer you guys to actually go for the SaaS model, which is the one that we have been talking about a lot just now. Hopefully those answer the question for these two.
With that, everyone, thank you for joining the webinar. If you have any question, you can directly email to us or contact us.